So I'll just do a quick introduction. We're here to talk about chemistry in our in these fine folks' books, and I am your moderator, and you may call me Dr. Tate. Um, and I am going to do a quick introduction for everyone. And some of you were awesome and sent me bios. All of you were awesome and sent me bios, I think. But I am going to just quickly kind of run through these. Catherine Lane, nice to meet you. I don't think we've met. You started writing fiction on a dare from your wife, and now you have several published romance novels, and you're happy to admit your wife was right, as we all do from time to time.
She often is. I have to admit that.
And your books explore how relationships arc and the complexities of falling in love. In your latest novel, Learn to Love, two couples make this journey. And spoiler alert, one pair does not go far, but one pair finds their happily ever after. Not really a spoiler because we expect at least one couple to get lucky in love.
And it's not the couple you think, which I like.
Okay, well, there you go. Um, D. Jackson Lee. Hey, nice to see you, pal.
Hey, haven't seen you
Um,
in a long time.
It is. She grew up barefoot and happy, swimming in farm ponds and riding rude ponies in rural Georgia. She's retired from her career as a journalist, but continues her real passion, writing sultry lesbian romances, laced with her trademark Southern humor and affection for dogs and horsies. She wrote horses, but horsies is more fun. She's published 15 novels and one collection of short stories with Bold Strokes Books, winning 5 Golden Crown Literary Society awards in paranormal, romance, and fantasy categories. That is very versatile. Um, we also have Joy. Joy, there you are. You're probably all in different spots, but you're beside me right here. Um, Joy, besides being an author, is an artist, and her art has made its way around the world. Her loves include her kids, grandkids, gardening, and fig trees. And I'm going to talk to you later about how to make fig trees actually grow figs because I am not good at that, and I love figs. So, anyway,
We
um,
got
do you have a secret?
well, there's thousands of different kinds of fig trees, and there's different ways to grow them. So I need to
Okay,
find out what you're doing and tell you if you're doing it wrong.
so it's not me.
Oh, it might be you. We don't know yet.
I thought you were going to tell me it was some chemistry thing, but
It could be.
it could be. Um, Ashley Bartlett wrote this herself. I'm just going to read it verbatim. Fueled by beer, I'm pretty sure. Ashley Bartlett is Carson Tate's favorite author after herself and favorite person after her wife. She is an editor and author who, much like Lord Byron, is mad, bad, and dangerous to know. So both well-read and sophomoric. You didn't think I'd read that parenthetical part, did you? Good to see you,
I'm
pal.
awesome.
Okay, so Kimberly, um, I'm riffing here. You're a software engineer and you also write award-winning novels, which is pretty fascinating. You you have like a lot of experience in both. And so how many books do you have now?
15.
15. 15.
Yeah.
What's your latest one?
The latest one is Accidentally in Love.
Excellent. Okay. Well qualified to talk about chemistry. Um, and then finally, we have Georgia Beers, who sent me a novel of a bio because,
I told you to whittle it.
yeah, I'm going to whittle on the fly here. She's written a million books, more like over 40. Um,
Wow.
she is award winning. She has a dog named Archie, who is a great love.
Right
And
behind you.
she has 4 small humans in her life who live 2 doors down that call her Gigi. And every morning she sees them. She loves tea. Um, Carson Tate is her favorite author. Um,
Yep.
I'm She did not write that. And fall is her favorite season. Her next book, called Whisk Me Away, will release in April, and it takes place at a baking retreat because she loves to write about baking and make us all very hungry.
Very true.
You can find out more about her at georgiabeers.com, or you could follow her on her Patreon account. Any others have Patreon accounts? Okay, well, if you do, spread the word because people would love to follow you and find out more stuff about you. So let's just dive right into the topic, which is chemistry in your novels. And so, because that is such a big topic, let's see how everybody defines it. Joy, let's start with you. How would you define chemistry?
Can you define it? I mean, you can see it, you know it's there, but to actually, excuse me, put words to it, do the characters fit together or don't they fit together? I mean, that's basically chemistry, right?
Yeah,
If somebody touches you and you go, ooh, you don't have chemistry with them.
this is a true statement that Joy has just made. So, and kind of a public awareness warning. Georgia, how about you? How would you define chemistry?
I tend to agree with Joy, and I when I was thinking about this morning, I thought about that, and I don't remember who the lawmaker was who was trying to define pornography, and he said that he couldn't define it, but he knew it when he saw it, and that's how I feel about chemistry. I don't have a great definition for it, but I know it when I read it, and I know it when I write it. It's about, I feel like it goes beyond physical attraction. I mean, there's physical attraction, but there's also that something else, that delicious thing that just, you know, these two people are going to be good together. I don't have like a
Yeah, no, I get it. It's hard to put into words. That's why I'm making you all do it.
do it for you.
Jackson, how about you?
Chemistry is sort of undefinable because you can't predict it. When you go to a party and there's someone that one person that you didn't know before, and you just find yourself talking to them all night long. It's a magnetic kind of thing that draws you to this person more than friendship, more than you just want to be in their presence. It's like you hold a puzzle piece and they hold the other puzzle piece that fits with yours. And it's something that's just, when it happens, it happens. It's not something you can make happen. It's that undefinable pheromones that just happen. That's how I explain to people that don't understand why, that I don't dislike men, but I prefer women intimately. I said, I have lots of men friends. I like guys, I can appreciate the ones that are handsome. I can appreciate handsomeness, but there's no chemistry, there's no sexual chemistry between me and guys. It's always a woman that I find I can't stay away from.
Yeah, no, I get that. Catherine, how about you?
I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't know if you can define chemistry, but I was thinking about it this morning as well. And I was thinking that it's like a really beautiful soup that you put all the ingredients in and it starts simmering. So if the attraction works, it should definitely be simmering there, and the chemistry should be simmering. And by the end, you obviously take a spoon of the soup, and if it's delicious, then the chemistry has worked. And if it's not, then you sort of throw it away and start your next soup, or obviously your next relationship. So I don't know. I mean, that's maybe a dumb analogy, but that's the best that I could come up with.
No, I love that. I love the puzzle. I love the soup. Those are fantastic ways of describing chemistry. Kimberly, how about you?
Well, somebody called me a nerd in the chat, and it's true. I am. I'm a total nerd. And I think about it in the way that chemistry really is. You have neutral, positive, and negative reactions to people. And that mix is what makes the special sauce for each person. And sometimes you can have chemistry
and then the next day you don't have chemistry, and it changes. So it really is kind of a blend of different things, not just the feelings that you have or the physical attraction, but there's like a hormonal thing that sometimes happens, and then maybe there's something that's going on around you that makes you just want to just like be with somebody just because you're in the moment. But I think chemistry, and the way it's described in novels is about how all those things interact and how they do that, and sometimes go from negative to positive.
Great answer. Bartlett, saved you for last. You got
Of course
anything to
you
add
did.
to this
I
equation,
do.
to this formula?
I have a definition. Chemistry is really about two disparate elements, and when you mix them together, they create something new and different. So, especially like if we're talking about romantic chemistry, I hope that my characters at the end of the novel are different than they were at the beginning. And the catalyst for that change is the other person, or at least it should be. And hopefully they are making each other better. If not, that's a different kind of chemistry. But yeah, I think that chemistry can also be outside of like those romantic relationships. We all have friendships where you improve each other just by being around. That's why Carson likes me. Obviously. But yeah, I think that that chemical reaction on like an emotional level is truly what chemistry comes down to.
So, I sent you all some questions. I'm going to totally deviate from that real quick because I had a thought come up that was inspired by this conversation, and it is, does the chemistry always have to be evident right away? Can chemistry develop over time? I mean, how does that work? Have you written characters who do not have any chemistry at first, or they have chemistry, but it's there's other things that I'm not saying that well, but like you feel some chemistry, but they don't know it. Does that make sense? Anybody want to?
Yeah, I think it can be intentional. I mean, if you're writing a romance, if you're writing a romance and you start out with your characters having zero chemistry, that better be on purpose. That's what I think. But you can do that. You can start it out that way. And I do believe that chemistry can, I have cat hair in my eye, that chemistry can develop over time, yes. But again, in a romance, I think that has to be on purpose. I think if it takes your characters a long time for you as the writer to show any chemistry, there's probably some issues with your story. I don't know. That's my thought.
That's a good thought.
I think you
I
can.
wrote a. Oh, go ahead.
I think you can. Sometimes there's several of my books had sort of people aren't who they appear to be, and that one book of mine, one of the characters is 20-something city girl on seemingly nothing in common with the other character, who is about 10 years older and has former military, has PTSD, so she lives out in the country, and where it's quieter, she can't take the crowds of the city, and they seem like total opposites. And when they first meet, they both size up each other by what they appear to be. But then as circumstances throw them together, they change how they see each other, and that chemistry develops. And I think that can happen.
But you did that as the writer, though. You did that as the writer.
I did that purposely.
Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah. So Ashley, answer that from both an editor and author perspective.
I mean, George is right. Like everything that you do should be intentional. I just like saying George is right. I know it gives her a flutter in her chest.
Georgia likes hearing
also chemistry. Yeah. But like I also wrote a series where the characters hated each other deeply at the beginning of it. And that's a different kind of chemistry. And that's fun to write because like they have chemistry that is unrealized. And the audience can see it, the characters just can't. So I think that chemistry doesn't necessarily have to be something positive. I mean, again, as long as that's an intentional choice. But I've definitely seen novels where authors were intending a different sort of chemistry than what came through. And the rule is always like, it doesn't matter what you intended, it matters what's on the page. So, like, just because you're feeling the vibes, you've got chemistry with your book, but nobody else is feeling the chemistry from that book.
Right.
Your vibe is off, she said, trying to be cool. Kimberly, how about you? Any?
Yeah, chemistry is like as what you were saying, Jackson, was that sometimes chemistry is there and you just feel it, right? And can it not be there and then you develop it? I think you can. It depends on the circumstances, but it depends on whether or not you're in a place to be able to receive it, or the other person is, and that kind of thing. I'm writing a story right now where it starts off with the characters as children and they have chemistry. They do, but it's not a sexual chemistry. It is they're best friends and they just can't even stand to be apart from one another. And then that changes when they have a falling out and they hate each other. And that's another kind of chemistry. They're hate each other. And I one time heard a person say that hate and love are almost the same thing. It's the intention behind it, because you still feel that feeling inside of you. And a lot of the same feelings that you feel when you're in love or you really hate somebody, it's just an intense feeling. And it's the intention of where that's going. So, and then eventually at the end of the book, because it's a romance, they have to have a happily ever after. And so then it would develop into that romantic feeling and that lust. But yeah, I think you can. I think it can change as things in your life change. And obviously, it's not okay for kids to have a sexual kind of chemistry, but later on in life, they're going to have that kind of chemistry too.
Catherine?
Well, I think that I am probably the author on this panel who's written the fewest amount of books, and I think I've really struggled with writing chemistry. So I think that can it the idea is that can it change? Absolutely, right? And I'm sorry, I'm not even sure I remember the question. What is the question, Carson?
I don't know. Something chemistry. I'm wearing a lab coat.
Something about chemistry?
Yeah, I don't actually remember because it's
about
not on my
chemistry
list, and I just kind of threw it out there. Like, I don't know.
Said, could they not have chemistry and have it ease into chemistry?
Yeah, do you have to start out with chemistry?
I think you absolutely have to start out with chemistry when you're writing a romance, right? I've had a reader tell me that if the two people don't meet each other within chapter 1 or 2, that they take the book and they put it back, they don't read it. So obviously you are writing about two people who are coming together. If they're not coming together through chemistry, then I'm not sure why you would be writing a romance. I guess
No,
that's my simple answer.
that's a very good point. And I'm thinking of like enemies to lovers, and even then sometimes you have chemistry. It's just,
For sure.
as some of you have alluded to, it's just not apparent to the characters yet. Joy, would you like to add anything about this?
I'm going to say that Georgia also is correct. I just want some points from her. No, I agree with you that they can start out and not recognize that there's chemistry. And as they get to know each other, the chemistry develops. So my answer would be yes, you can start out without the chemistry. It's there, they just don't know it's there.
And so my next question is about the difference, and some of you have alluded to this, the difference between romantic chemistry feelings and physical chemistry feelings. And
Sorry, could you demonstrate that once more?
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
wasn't very
understand the difference.
Um, and how do you choose which to introduce first? Because some books open with physical chemistry before they even get to know each other, and vice versa. How do you decide which to do first? How do you decide is one more important than the other? How do you convey them? This is a broad thing, broad topic, so feel free to just kind of jump in on that. Would anyone like to jump in first? Kimberly.
I mean,
Yes, I would like to go first. Well, you kind of said it, that there's physical chemistry and then there's romantic chemistry. And earlier on, I think most of us kind of came to a conclusion that it's a mix of all that stuff. And but the I think that it's probably a difficult thing to say this is how I'm going to do it in my book. So it has to kind of just emerge, right? The characters get together. So it's about knowing your character's backstory and their future needs and wants and their fantasies and whatever, and taking all of that and bringing it together. And so it's a mix of both romantic and physical chemistry. And it can start with, a lot of characters that I read in romances start with a lot of physical chemistry. They just want to get in and jump each other's bones. And then it kind of works into more romantic. And then you have your happily ever after, which is like almost pure romance, right? So it's a mix of those emotions and understanding the depth of your character and building that depth of your character as you're going towards it. And a lot of stuff is not written on the page. And that's when it's going to kind of start coming out because their actions kind of start insinuating where it's at. So whether or not they have a negative chemistry in the beginning or positive or whatever, it'll eventually develop, and it has everything to do with all of their backstory and what their desires are going forward that will help kind of show that as you go along.
That makes a lot of sense. Ashley?
well, I mean, I think it comes down to what you intend when you're laying out the story. So Carson's first novel is TrueLesbianLove.com. Is that correct? Yes, nailed it. So those characters did not they didn't know that they were seeing each other. So they didn't see each other and they fell in love emotionally before they ever had any opportunity for sexual chemistry. So I think it very much has to do with what you want to accomplish within that story when you're starting it out. And I'm very much a pantser, not a plotter, but we all still know exactly where we're going when we start writing. So yes, the characters can dictate some of that, but also Radcliffe has told us all we are God when we're writing, which I really like hearing. If someone could tell me again, you can go ahead anytime. But we have that power. You're making that choice. So what sort of story are you telling? And then that will dictate how that chemistry comes through.
Also makes a lot of sense. Anyone else want to chime in on this? Catherine?
Well, for me, I really, really love the romantic chemistry. I love those soft, subtle, everyday moments that are translated into sort of the building of the characters. So for me, it's obviously you need physical chemistry in order for a relationship to survive, but I think it absolutely cannot survive without those soft little intimate moments that are there every single day. And for me, that's what's really exciting for me to find in my characters. So, that they come together in these tiny little moments that nobody else could experience but the two of them together. And so that's what I really love about writing romance, is the romantic chemistry.
Georgia? I feel like you want to say something.
Well, I do want to say that I do want to say that the question that you sent to us said physical attraction, not physical chemistry. And I feel like
Okay.
those are two different things. However,
I have been called out. But Georgia,
Well,
who is right?
I only said that
Yeah.
because my answer is based on physical attraction.
Do
and not
it. Do it.
But
Do it.
I feel like physical attraction is just that. And I feel like you can look at somebody and you can immediately think, wow, she's really attractive. But I feel like when you move from physical attraction to chemistry, I feel like it's almost like the person going from 1 or 2 dimensional to 3 dimensional. Like all of a sudden everything's in color. It's like black and white to color. I feel like chemistry just opens everything up figuratively and literally. But
What do you mean by that? Could you expand?
That's a different panel.
I think Jordan's right. I don't think any of my books have this, but I've read several good books where the characters met each other in a bar or something, were physically attracted, slept together, and then somewhere down the road they find out they run into each other again. Like one of them reports to work at a new job and goes, "Oops, that's my boss I slept with," and that can work too. And that's simply physical attraction, and the other attraction comes later.
That makes a lot of sense.
It
Joy?
works in some situations.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of my books, most of my books, now that I'm thinking about it, they start out as friends, so it's a whole different kind of chemistry. They may or may not be physically attracted to each other to begin with. It's the friendship that turns into romance that causes, is that the right word? At least to expose the chemistry, I guess would be the way to say it. So they start out with one kind of chemistry and it turns into another. And then when we get to the actual physical chemistry, to me, that's the payoff. That's what all of these moments have led up to. So
Yeah.
it's all chemistry, but it's just different layers of chemistry.
Yeah, there's usually some like change agent that happens, something that comes in and sparks a different kind of.
Right. And a lot of times one character realizes it way before the other one does, but she can't say anything, of course. So.
Yeah. It's awkward.
Yeah.
All right. So, question, do you write the chemistry as you go? Or do you sprinkle it back in? And as this is kind of harkening back to that's very intentional. So and by that, I guess I mean, are you writing your story like, I own a bakery. I'm trying to shut down all the bakeries in town. You have this plot. And then are you sprinkling the chemistry back in, or does it have to happen as you're writing? I think there's no right answer for this, but Georgia may disagree.
The intention for me is to always have some kind of chemistry at the start. I have to want these people to jump in the sack just as badly as my readers do. So I prefer that the chemistry, I mean, it can come a little at a time, but yeah, I try to write it from the beginning. I'm not great at going back and adding it. That being said, sometimes it's a struggle, and there have been a couple of books where I've just gotten halfway through and thought these people are just there's nothing here, and I had to go back and figure out what was missing and sprinkle in, as you said, what I needed to sprinkle in and get them where they needed to be to continue forward. I would rather just have to beef it up a little, but I don't want to do that. I would rather have it come through as I'm writing. I don't want to have to go through and beef it up. I feel like if I have to go back and fix it, it messes with my head. Like my imposter syndrome starts to go, oh, you're terrible at this. What are you doing? So yeah, I'd rather have it be there, but it doesn't always happen that way.
Catherine, I'm going to jump to you on this because you were mentioning that chemistry is hard for you to write.
Yes, I have to write it as I go along because I feel like it is what's propelling the book forward. And if I get too wrapped up by the plot or anything else or the situations, which essentially is the same thing, that I find the chemistry takes a back seat. And nobody's reading a romance, as far as I'm concerned, to have chemistry take a back seat. Obviously in a really successful book, you have an incredible plot and you have the chemistry that are walking hand in hand. But for me, I have to concentrate on the chemistry as I'm going forward. Now, having said that, I'm just like Georgia. There are times where I'm like, oops, I need to do better. And you go back and you beef up a section, but the cinder has always been there and then you just turn it into a flame. Hopefully, if it
That's
works.
another good. I'm adding that to puzzle and soup. Jackson, how about you?
Um,
I feel like
yeah,
you
I
write
agree
it
with
as you go.
everything that's been said. I don't usually for for me, I have to build it like George. I have to build it as I write the book. The characters get to know each other. I to be effective, I feel like I have to put myself in their shoes. And if I'm not feeling the chemistry, then I'm not getting it written correctly. Um, now that doesn't mean to say I write everything perfect the first time. On my third novel, on that one of the moments I'll never forget. My third novel was about polo, a polo player, and my editor Shelley Thrasher, when she went through editing it, she marked. She said, "This is a first kiss. You 2 lines on a first kiss. You got to do better than this on the first kiss." And that stuck in my, those little lessons stick in your head, and I write a lot slower now after all these years of Shelley editing me, because I edit myself. I'll go, oh no, Shelley would fix that, and all those little warning flags. But yeah, I have to have the chemistry build. I can't remember, except maybe that one instance where I went back and added chemistry, because for me, I'm a pure romance writer, and the romance is what the story is built around, not the plot with the romance woven in there.
Can I ask a question? Does anybody here on this panel write out of order?
Occasionally.
Okay, so then my question is chemistry harder for you when you write that way, or is it easier?
It's easier.
How?
If I get stuck someplace, as long as I know the characters well enough, which I don't when I start the book, I can't do it at the beginning. But if I reach a point where I'm stuck, but I know there's a scene that's coming up, I will write that scene. And then when I jump backwards, I know the characters a little bit better at
Okay,
that point, so it's easier to move on.
I see. Ashley, is it the same for you?
Same, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Because I
Because
write
I get bored.
linearly, and I feel like that's the only way for me to build the chemistry is to write from start to finish, but to each your own.
So, Ashley, I'm going to pick on you a little bit for several reasons. One, author and editor. And so you probably had to tell people before, beef up that first kiss.
Mhm.
And also
Chemistry
you
sucks.
write, you've written several books that are suspense driven. So I I think that makes a difference in, it's not just a pure romance. So talk about it.
So, I mean, it's much like watching the Underworld movies. Like, yes, there's a plot. Does it make sense? No, it's about Kate Beckinsale with a gun and a leather jumpsuit running around. And I think even with like anything with a heavy plot, like a thriller or something with a mystery, like yes, you have to conform to like logic and a plot line, but really what drives it is like sexy explosions. So that could be like Kate Beckinsale in a leather jumpsuit running around, or it could be literally blowing up a building. So like all of those things for me are part of the sex appeal of writing, and that's what makes it fun. If you're not having fun when you're writing, then like you need to take a deep look at yourself, because we all chose the poorest occupation, so you at least should be enjoying yourself while you're doing it. So like I think that is what drives the plot. And yes, also your plot should make sense, because that's what editors are looking for. But also like that's what editors are for, to look through and say like, hey, so you have introduced a sex scene here where you say it's the third time your characters are strapping and we never saw the first time, and this is a romance, so maybe we should show that since there's like some emotional depth you're missing. So that's the editor piece, is like going through and saying, hey, there are things that your audience wants to see here that are really important for this narrative. We have to show them. And if it's 2 lines for a first kiss, you fucked up, dude.
To add to what Ashley's saying, and Jill in the comments just asked about, editing comments and how much does that affect the process. First of all, editor comments are generally suggestions, but they're from something else, right? So
Right.
you don't have to change it according to that. But if you're hitting that with the editor, they're seeing something you probably aren't, like the chemistry's off, or like she said, maybe you need to beef this up or whatever. But the process is with, for me at least, with chemistry, you'd asked Georgia earlier about whether or not it's linear, or if I do move around a lot. It's because I know where that chemistry needs to flare or calm down, so I'll go to that area and add the chemistry, and then fill in between the two and in the rest of the story that I'm trying to get to. But when an editor is telling you that something's missing, you don't have to do exactly what they suggest, but you can fill in the blanks. And I'm sorry, Ashley, if you were my editor, I'd do exactly what you asked me to do.
That is correct.
Yes.
I was unaware these were optional suggestions.
I'd also like to address Jill's question. To clarify, Shelley wasn't asking me to add in chemistry. The chemistry is there. She was just asking me to flesh out the words, that paragraph, which is a different sort of thing. But I want to say this about that. Your editor is almost always right. And I haven't written nearly as many books as Georgia, and I think Georgia's a master. I read all her books. But the one time that I argued with, and Shelley has edited all but one of my books, the one time I argued with Shelley about something she mentioned, she said, okay, this is not working because you don't mention this character again to the middle of the book. By that time, you've forgotten who they are. So whatever you want to do to fix it, then go ahead. So I thought about it for 3 days, and I tried a bunch of different ways. And then I said, oh, crap, she's right. And did some changing. I moved that scene much deeper in the book because it didn't have to be at the first of the book. And after that, when she makes suggestions, I pretty much take them as gospel. I mean, there's been little things like I had to explain some horsey things to her that didn't seem clear to her, but she's generally right. And these editors are experienced people, and they're also fresh eyes on their work. So
I think that's a good point, the fresh eyes part. Getting feedback from someone, that we all get so immersed in our work that it's nice to have a fresh view. Because sometimes you feel like chemistry's there or something's there and that you've made your point. But someone else will read it and they're not in your head, and it's in your head. So
Exactly.
anyone else want to speak to that question? That I don't remember anymore, but about whether or not you added in first or later or any of that, or whether or not your editor has come to you and said, you need more here or anything like that. Well, let's jump to a question in the Q&A, and that is, have you ever started writing about two characters and then you've realized that you're never going to make chemistry work between them and you need to abandon this story? And what do you do at that point? Has that ever happened to anyone?
I've never abandoned the story, but I've had to go back and rework like the first third of a book. And I didn't get all the way through the book. I just got to a point where I was like, these people are not, there is nothing here. If I can't feel it, the readers are not going to feel it. And I had to go back and figure out what the deal was. So I didn't abandon it, but I had to go back and do some reworking.
You figured out the deal though.
I figured it out, yeah, and I added some more chemistry, and it was demoralizing because it wasn't recent, but it also wasn't my first or second book. It was enough that I should have known better.
I just went through a painful experience with that. I had pitched a story to Sandy, and she came back and said she was interested in it. And I had to tell her at that point that I just lost it. I couldn't do it, you know. And it was everything to do with the chemistry. And I realized that I was forcing it throughout because I had this idea that this is a great story and I want to put it out there. And I got 70,000 words into it.
Oh, ouch.
I
That's a
know,
whole
I know.
book, Kimberly.
And
I
I
Yeah,
know.
that's
know,
an
and then
entire
somebody else says,
novel.
I want this, and I'm like, or let's talk about it. And I'm like, oh shoot, I can't, but I've got another story. Can we do that? So we're working on that, but it was painful to say that 70,000 words into it that I was forcing it and I didn't want to go back and try to add that in there because it just felt like I was failing it. And I know that other stories, maybe I would have, but this one particular story, and it was painful. It was
I
very
feel
painful.
like you could auction that story on eBay and just say, complete
Absolutely.
story, just needs chemistry,
Right.
starting bid.
Done.
Just
Okay.
needs chemistry.
Somebody's going to buy that.
All they have to do is pay them a piece of their soul for yours, since you're selling a piece of yours.
I'll take it. I'll take souls.
Yes.
Anybody else start writing and then not feeling it?
Sometimes that happens to me where I'm writing it and it's either life or the story or whatever comes up, and I have to personally take a break. And then I almost invariably write a short story that deals with the problem that I'm having, whether I know it or not. And when I'm done with the short story, I can come back to the book and think, oh, I kind of solved that, or I now know where to go. So that's an exciting moment for me. Yeah. So that's the kind of the way I handle it. Thank you.
Thank you. So some of you have, I mean, you all have multiple books out. And some of you have written series, and Ashley kind of alluded to that. But how do you keep the chemistry? I mean, how do you keep coming up with new ideas to introduce chemistry in your books? If you're writing a series with same characters, how do you keep that chemistry alive? Just it's kind of a broad topic, but how do you keep things fresh in how you demonstrate chemistry and how you write it? Joy?
Literally have to go back to my books sometimes that I've already written and make sure I'm not repeating things that the characters are doing or situations. I think the way I keep it fresh is by trying to create totally different characters. And as long as I'm dealing with different characters, different people dealing with each other, then I'm not repeating stuff that has already happened. So it's not always the easiest thing to do. And sometimes I think I just turned in book 11. So yeah, I don't remember some of the stuff I've already written. I have to go back and, do a search in a Word document or something and see if I've already said that.
Same, Joy. Same. How about anyone else?
It's hard.
Yeah,
How many
I
books
think
has
that-
Carson written?
Go ahead.
No, this isn't about me. Not as many as Georgia.
I'm amazed that Georgia constantly. I feel like as many books as she's written, I'm going to pick up the new one and I'll go, oh, this is the same old, but it's not. I mean, Georgia, how do you do it?
that was a long pause.
That is a relief. I know. I was like, it's hard. I think it has not, it not only has to do with different situations, but it's putting characters into different situations, and it's about them seeing each other in different situations, and it's about the flirting and the banter and the observation that one character has about another character. That when you're attracted to somebody, you pay more attention to her. You notice things that she likes, you notice things that she doesn't like, you notice things that she does, you notice things that she wears, you notice the way that she smells. And I have my own particular loves, like perfumes and smells, and I have to write those all down because I'm afraid that every single one of my characters smells the same. They all
Everyone
smell like
smells of
coconut.
lavender.
So I need like a spreadsheet. But yeah, I think that those are things you have to have to make, you have to have them, and they have to be different in each book. I don't know how else to do it.
Now, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about the tracking your your romance chemistry clues. Ashley, you started to say something.
Yeah, so Stephen Crane is like an early 20th century novelist and writer, and he was a realist. And so basically his principle was like you create a character, you have them fully fledged, you put them in the most fucked up situation you can imagine, and then you see what they do. Um, and so I like that. If I'm going through a series of novels where I've got the same characters and they're the central couple in all of those books, I really have to find new fucked up things to do to them. And that's fun. But also it means that like you can break up your characters and then get them back together. So it's like a whole new challenge. I remember when I was writing the Cash series, in one of the books, the characters break up. Multiple of the books, the characters break up. But Carson texted me after she had read it, and she's like, "Oh, I really like this one." And I'm like, "Well, you're the only person because everyone else is really mad at me." And she said, "Well, they're crybabies," and I just want you all to know that Carson thinks that you're crybabies, but also like it's fun to just mess with your characters to see how they might possibly overcome it. Um, and also back to the chemistry thing, we're adding in new elements. So we now have a death threat or whatever it is, so you can see how that might change the chemistry between the characters, see how it might change the emotional capacity of one or the other. So that's all the fun of writing is how do you keep this going? And if I'm not interested, my audience is certainly not interested.
That right there, that is key.
Yeah.
That's the truth. I mean, there's a thing called dialing it in, like you just start writing and you do what you know and what you feel, that kind of thing. But also I know that if you were to give the same writing prompt to every one of us on this panel right now, we'd all come up with a different story. And that's kind of how it should feel like when you get to know your characters, is that story is specific to them, even if it's the same thing that's happening to all the other characters and all the other stories that are being written. So don't dial it in.
Do not dial it in, and that is a great place for us to start wrapping up. I just want to quickly do a round of everybody talk about what your current and next novel is. If you have a next one coming up, let's start with Joy.
The last one that came out is Letters from Sarah. The next one is coming out in September. It's called My Boyfriend's Wife.
Oh.
Catherine.
The one that's out right now is called Lead Into Love. Obviously, thank you very much for mentioning it earlier. And I have a book in September that's coming out that's called Echoes of Love. And it's sort of a supernatural, has a supernatural bent to it.
Excellent. Georgia?
I have Whisk Me Away coming out in April, which takes place at a baking retreat. And then in August is That's Amore, which is my love letter to my trip to Rome last year. And then I am in the middle of writing The Great Popcorn Romance, which comes out in December.
This is why I will never catch up to you. D. Jackson Lee.
I had two books that came out last year. The first one, When Tomorrow Comes, is as somebody is a high functioning autistic, and the other one is severe ADHD. I modeled after one of my nieces. And in November, Unwrapped, which was sort of a Christmas story. And right now I'm working on Hearts Run, and it's I've been emailed several times over the years from Carol, who lives in Colorado and wanted me to do something about the wild horses. So that's what I'm working on now. Two characters that are on opposite ends of the wild horse issue, and how to I'm struggling getting them together.
Kimberly, I'm certain you'll find a way. Kimberly.
Yeah. My latest book is Accidentally in Love. It's a kind of a workplace romance with enemies to lovers kind of thing. I really enjoyed writing that. It has a lot of my own personal experience in the work industry, not necessarily in the romance aspect of it, but And then I am right now, because of my experience of writing that one book that I had to just kind of shelf. I'm writing another book that I'll probably be pitching to Sandy. It's tentatively called "I Hate You, Now Kiss Me," and that's about major chemistry. There's a lot of chemistry in there, but it starts off as people, or these the two main characters as children who end up having a falling out and then see each other later, and how that comes up.
All right, Arlette, round us out.
My latest is Revisiting Summer Nights. It's about two women who were in a slasher flick in their early 20s and they fell in love on the movie set. And now it's 10 years later and they're back for one of the reboots. One of them's on her third wife. One of them's directing the picture. Yes.
I'm in. Take my money.
Yeah, for a book. Yeah.
And then I'm currently working on a dystopian post-apocalyptic something that doesn't have a title, and I don't want to talk about this anymore. Thank you very much.
Okay, we will look forward to it. Horror and dystopia. All right, everybody. Thanks very much. Stay tuned for more episodes of the BSB Bookathon, and thanks to everyone on the panel and everyone who joined us today.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.